It's 12 o'clock in Frisco, Texas, and it's time for Smoker Broker Radio with Robert Mesh, a.k.a. the Smoker Broker. Robert is the owner of Small World Realty and has employed hundreds of real estate agents in his 17-year career. He has instructed and mentored over 10,000 real estate agents at the highly acclaimed Champions School of Real Estate and is considered an expert in Texas residential realty. Robert is also an advocate of true entrepreneurial spirit and has helped many to transition from corporate America into the world of self-employment. And now live from the studio to your world, the Smoker Broker.
Hey, welcome to Smoker Broker. I'm Robert Mesh, and I'm the guy they call the Smoker Broker. Hope everything's going well. Happy Thursday to you. Man, what a week. We're going to jump right into it because we have a lot of current events. We have just a massive amount of things that happened in the last week. So we always want to start off with current events on the show, and then we want to get to our topic today, which is going to be rejection. It's a really good one because it's one you have to accept if you're going to be in real estate or, do anything dealing with real estate. And it's really going to be not just real estate conversation, but a business conversation as well, because rejection is a part of almost anything that we do in business and in life. So it should be a really good show from that standpoint. But this past week, wow, I don't even know where to start with it. So, if you're in Texas, which primarily most of our viewers are, but we do see a lot of people in other parts of the country. But if you are in Texas, it is of no surprise to you the past week, the issues that we had with, surprisingly, you wouldn't think would be an issue, would be a winter storm. It's not like we haven't had winter storms in Texas before. And it's not like we haven't had bad storms before. Quite honestly, last week was not a bad storm. I don't even think the snow accumulation was over 3 inches in a lot of areas and barely a little bit of ice. That is not classified as a major bad storm. But God forbid the events that transpired from that storm were just unprecedented. Never before had we seen such issues, and it really revolved around the lack of power. And we don't even have enough time on this particular show to discuss the real issues inside of what happened here. But here's a couple things, and then it's important to us because we're the ones that are having to deal with this right now. Those of you who don't think that the power issue doesn't affect us, or the ERCOT decisions and everything doesn't affect us, right now, over 85% of the deals that we're dealing with right now are having to be paused because of issues where water damage occurred because power was out. Not just because it was cold. A combination of water being out and being cold and power being out. And when you have that many houses that are under contract, that are having to be re-inspected, that are having to get vendors out when it closes like 2 or 3 weeks away, you got problems. And we do have problems right now. In fact, we got a lot of problems right now. And this is not going to end super quick for us. And here's the thing that I heard this morning, and it scared me just a little bit. Because I've been one of those that I thought we were extremely fortunate that our house did not have pipes busted. In fact, I still don't see it. We were actually one of the houses that went 4 days without any power, no rolling blackout. We were out. And I felt the last couple of days relief in the fact that, wow, I can't believe we made it through that. Well, I'm starting to hear studies this morning that are saying things like it's very possible that the pipes have not burst yet because they're worn from the damage that was done, but it wasn't enough to pop them now. But it's very possible in the next few weeks that it could still happen. And I did not like hearing that, because I was like, one, I can believe it, because I first of all couldn't believe they didn't burst the first time. I mean, when you get to below zero in Texas with the way our houses are insulated, and you don't have heat going through, it's not too hard to pop a pipe. And that's somewhat of a concern right now, that we think we're relieved in it, but we're really not. I hardly know anybody right now that has a pool that didn't have some type of damage. I unfortunately thought I made it through that until my pool guy went in there yesterday and said one of the valves had, in fact, busted. Thankfully, it's not a massive repair, but nonetheless, it happened. And I haven't talked to anybody yet that has a pool that didn't tell me that they had some type of issue or that they think they might have an issue. Because here's the thing, a lot of the pools haven't been turned back on yet. A lot of the pools are waiting because their pool company told them, don't start that thing up until we get in there. So you actually have people right now that are still going through turning their pool on, so you don't even know the extent of the damage. So this is just a unprecedented concern for us right now. In 20 years, never had to deal with anything like this. Probably will go another 20 years with ever having to see anything like this. But the fascinating conversation really relies on how do we get there? How did that happen? How do you have a state that has by far the most power driven in the summer because of the air conditioning, the heat that we have in the state? A state that's very familiar with power concerns. How do we have it where we're in the winter, where it's not just complete, a shock that heaters and the electricity to run the heaters is going on, knowing a week in advance, because we were well informed about that storm. It was well documented that we were going to be at frigid temperatures, and not just for a day, for a good week. How does that happen? How does someone who's not in charge, not someone, somebody, some amount of people, how is it that many people that are in charge of something aren't sitting there going, it's super possible that everyone in the state is going to have that power at an ultimate high to keep those houses from going cold? At what point did someone say it can't handle that?
Well, they knew about it the week before.
Yeah, they did. And did you hear the comments this morning?
Mm-mm.
The comments this morning were, we probably should have done more. I'm like, what do you mean? How did you get to that point? Who in there said, hey, that really could be an issue? I'm not even a meteorologist, and even I'm like, hey, we always get these little snow warnings and these weather advisory warnings. The problem this time is it's going to be cold well before those storms get here, and that is usually bad news for us.
Yep.
Usually when it's frigid cold before that stuff comes, it causes a mess here. It always does. The storms aren't bad for us, or when we're like 60 degrees the day before, and then we have a rain band coming in, it's cold. Those are never a problem. But those ones when we get down into the teens 3 or 4 nights before, and then precipitation comes in, they know. They posted winter weather advisories 4 days in advance, and then they posted winter storm warnings 2 days in advance for the entire state.
Yep.
And here we are having power problems. And, we're not going to make this into a bitching session about power. I think the social media and the news have been well documented that there are massive concerns. But, we were talking right before the show where now they're even considering these bills that are coming in that some people are seeing $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 bills. They're like, hey, look, we're going to have to fix this. They just can't. That's just not going to work that way. And whether it goes into disaster aid, whether it goes into federal government, state, I don't know.
Isn't that price gouging anyways?
Who knows what? I mean, look, if you really want to get into this, and I'm not even going to say names. I won't even name organizations. That way I can just say I'm giving an opinion. But if they start digging deep into that, they're going to find somebody cut some type of cost that saved somebody money or gave somebody money to make sure that those grids ran on X amount when it could have had more. There's just no one that can tell me otherwise. There's no way in this day and age that we don't have the technology to make sure that that doesn't happen. And if that's the case, then that means somebody did something they weren't supposed to. I love the comments about the that's taken everything I have not to comment publicly on a site or anything. But all the big power companies, again, I won't say a name, that way I can't be held responsible for one name or another. But all the power companies out there are responding to these complaints. They're like, hey, look, we can't help acts of God. I'm like, nobody asked you to help an act of God. The act of God was not the problem. The act that was a problem was incompetence when somebody who's running the system. The act of God was that is not a bad storm. There's not a problem with the storm. So don't tell me your act of God issues. This was an act of stupidity. So it's funny, the power companies, they're just gearing up. I also like the conversation about I love how the power companies are shifting this towards thanking the workers that did this. Hey, don't get me wrong. There ain't nobody more thankful than those people that were out there in that weather fixing those things. You want to talk about the MVPs? Believe me, because that's not their fault. But the fact that the power companies turning it on, that this is something good that they didn't do a damn thing. It's the guys that went out there and did the work. It put in the overtime that are the ones that did. The power companies and the ones that go into the other system, they're the ones that make the decisions on how this stuff works. I also love when you actually go to a particular title, a power company, and you pay that power company, and they go, well, your section doesn't go through us. It goes through this power company. That's damn convenient, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that must be good for you. You take the money, but you put the blame on them. Yeah, that's the common sense level with this power thing. I tell you, I don't know where it goes. I don't know if it shows the current state of what we have and the people that lead things. But you talk about the ultimate F-ups in a long time with monitoring energy. That's got to be damn close to up there. And I'm sure the consequences will continue. It's funny. I noticed that what 4 or 5 members of the board quit.
Mm-hmm.
Funny how they quit.
Yep.
I'm sure that wasn't hey, somebody needs to get out before they
Mm-hmm.
come burn the place down.
Yep.
And then we'll try to make some type of a symbol as to what's going on. We could talk a lot more about it. We're not going to, but the bottom line is that's affecting us. This show is watched primarily by a lot of real estate agents and a lot of their clients as well. You should know right now, from a real estate perspective, we are most likely delayed in the transactions that we are doing because of the power issue that caused a lot of the water damage in the state. We are delayed right now. So the reason why we're talking about it is a main subject for us. A lot of people are very shocked by the fact that so many people are affected by this. So truly an interesting event, unprecedented. Saw an article this morning. Big surprise. We are in the lowest level of flu infection in the history of the world. Big surprise.
Yep.
You know, we go to taking more precaution in what's usually a very uncomfortable part of the season for a lot of people, and flu's down. Which, by the way, you know, with the constant media of COVID, which, believe me, is absolutely material and important and has affected so many lives, never forget that flu kills a ton of people in this country all the time, in this world all the time. And we've been so focused on COVID, as we should be, because there's no doubt COVID is can be very rough for not everyone, but for some people. But the flu, it's pretty damaging as well. And where we went to where we shifted and closed things down, and we're still reeling from an economy that's hurt by it, it's very hard to process right now. Did we handle this right or did we not handle it right? And make no mistake, I'm all for the mask in public. I'm all for social distancing. I'm all for taking every precaution it takes to make sure that COVID is minimal. Believe me more than anybody. But this stuff that we're still reeling from, an economy that shifted because of the way we did this, I don't know. I don't know if it's media driven why we did it that way or whatever. But the bottom line is it's almost like we just shifted one gear. And it is great that the flu is down. The flu's horrible. The flu's horrible. The flu sucks. I mean, there's no there are some people that went through COVID and went, oh, no big deal. Nobody goes through the flu and went,
Yeah.
and the flu sucks. So I found that interesting this morning. I found it interesting that the article was even there. They're like, hey, flu's down. I'm like, really?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have bet my life on that, you know? So one more issue too. Like I said, I was kind of interested this week. It's my show. I can be opinionated if I want to. Found it interesting that 2 major celebrities this week had some major issues, and they just kind of they just kind of go away. So of course, Tiger's in the news all day yesterday, this past couple of days, right? And now this morning they came out and said he is not going to be charged for any type of crime. Now I'm not saying he was guilty of any crime. I don't know if he is or if he isn't. It's just very convenient that car's rolled up like that in the middle of the day. There's nobody else involved, and there's nothing was done.
What's the difference between a golf ball and a car?
What's that?
Tiger Woods can drive a golf ball 400 yards.
I knew it when she said it. There's no charge, yet there are people that saw him excessively speeding before it happened. Big surprise looking at that car,
Yeah.
So no charges there. The one that really gets under my skin, big time, the boss himself. And Mr. Springsteen got himself in a little bit of trouble this past week, drinking in public. There's nothing wrong with that. We all can have a few, but it's hard when you take a couple shots of tequila and the cops are watching, and then you get on your bike right after. It's very hard for them not to pull you over for, being intoxicated. Now, whether he's intoxicated or not then becomes the other question. But when you're sitting there watching someone take shots and then they get on it, you're almost obliged that you're going to have to pull them over. So he was charged with DWI or DUI, and he was charged with reckless driving. And those surprisingly went away too.
Was he charged for that Super Bowl commercial too?
Should have been. It was such a tragedy, right? I find it funny that his political comments over the last couple years, and I'm not going to say whether I agree or not with him. I just find it funny, a person of that status that has to have so much opinions about so many things, that there he is kind of just backdooring what most of us would have been in jail for and had a real screwed up career path for the next 5 years. But for him, it's not a problem. For Tiger, it's not a problem. It just goes away, right? Don't mean anything by it. I just found that interesting. I found that interesting today. I found that those two stories to me were very interesting as to why it just all goes away so super quick. All right. I wanted to talk about the current events because I thought it was a fascinating week, and it was. Those events were really interesting. They're not the normal stuff. We try not to make the show just completely real estate. We want to make it to where it has other interests besides just always talking real estate. But it is primarily a real estate show, and that's why we're going to talk about real estate. But because I've been so bad with it lately, I want to make sure we get our sponsors off right now in the beginning, because I don't want Brent to come in and ease into one of my conversations.
Why don't you like my segues?
I forgot.
My transitions are great. They're legendary.
Well, we always thank our sponsors a lot. We're very thankful for it. We have a lot of people that watch the show, especially a lot of real estate agents, and it's a very good benefit for people to sponsor the show, as they do get very decent business from the people that watch. So, Brent, if you don't mind, can you run through our couple of great sponsors before we get into everything?
First of all, our main sponsor is, well, not main, but our first sponsor is Mr. Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections. He's our go-to inspector for all of the deals that we have. We obviously refer a bunch of inspectors to our clients, give them the choice, but if they really ask our opinion, we say go with Martin because he's the guy that we know and trust. He provides color-coded inspection reports that's easy for us to identify what's a problem and what's not at a glance. He's always reliable, on time, and very professional with his wording. Great bedside manner. You can reach him at 817-401-3240 or go to bpginspections.com and click on Martin Cooley and schedule that way. Now, for our next sponsor, hopefully Tiger Woods was a client of Greg Holdberg, the independent health insurance broker. Your simple solution for affordable healthcare is here. Join the Liberator movement and take control of your healthcare. $5 million lifetime maximum per policy. Customize your healthcare plan to fit your healthcare and budget needs. Use any doctor or hospital without a penalty. For additional savings, use the PPO network at no additional charge. Teledoc is included in all plans. You save 40 to 60% on your premiums. Their deal of the week, a single professional with dental for $222 per month. As an independent agency, Liberator is committed to transforming healthcare in Texas through innovative healthcare plans that are affordable and rich in benefits. For more information and to get a quick quote, call or text Greg Holdberg, independent health insurance broker, at 214-886-4688 or visit them at liberatorhealthinsurance.com.
Great vendors that we have there. I will put a little bit of extra in for Martin today because, let's see, hang on for a second. with all the disasters that we've had a lot of re-inspections. Right now, the inspectors are not just doing their typical inspections. They're actually being asked to go do storm inspections. Of course, Martin does do the storm inspections as well. So I know he's going to be really busy. And for all of our people that watch the data that the information you just got about Martin, he's a great person to contact with those concerns out there right now. So always thankful for those guys and those sponsors. All right. I love this conversation. You wouldn't think I would, because rejection sucks.
Was that a Miller Lite just now?
I wish it was. Sometimes if you do the black side of the full throttle, it looks like Guinness or something,
You're like Springsteen right now.
Not that I'm not on a motorcycle. I'm at home.
Not yet.
Not yet, right? So rejection is part of everything we do. It's a part of real estate. It's a part of business. And unfortunately, it's a part of life. And it's a part of life that nobody enjoys. Rejection sucks. There's nothing great about it. There's really no positives to it. Some people can say that you can learn from it, which is going to be part of the show, but it still sucks. It's still nothing that is pleasant by any means. And a lot of times it can be downright hurtful. There are a lot of people that have different ways of controlling their emotions. Some people can be very cold and not care as much. Some people have just extremely, any little thing that's disappointing just causes a distraught and completely ruins their day and their focus. Everybody has different levels there. So Brent's that one. I'm the cold one.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, whatever.
I know. Whenever I call you, I'm nervous. You just hang up on me. No, you reject me again.
Believe me, if it's not interesting or important to me, that's exactly what would happen. I sent a few people yesterday. The stupid cat meme where that black cat's just sitting there doing like this.
Yeah.
That, as much as I hate cats, no offense, anybody who's watching the show that doesn't know me, my wife, we have a joke about cats, right? So I'm not being some hateful type of animal hater.
He is a hateful cat man, though.
Don't go that way, but that's what I feel like when someone's talking to me and I have no interest in what they're saying. That's what I feel like I'm looking like them at. Because I'm like, I wish this person would just shut up because I don't give a damn about what they're saying. So that does happen a lot. It's hard for some people to accept rejection, and that's okay. It is a part of life. It starts very early. I don't know if it's worse to watch kids get rejected or as you get older to get rejected. I don't know which one's worse. I don't think you can put a monitor on, how is it affected? Because, if you're a kid and you're rejected, it's an instant. You're like, oh, I don't know how to react to this. But if you're an adult, you're like, oh, I've seen this before.
I'm tired of it.
Yeah, and I'm tired of it. So I thought about this before we did the show. I started thinking about it. I go, which one's worse? The kid rejection? Because those can be traumatic, or an adult. And you said it best. I'm tired of this. So it's very tough. And I don't think there's a right answer to that question. So I thought about that before we started discussing this, and I couldn't come up with the right answer. We try to teach our kids that rejection is normal and common. And I think most of us try to brace them for it because we'd be completely naive if we didn't. We'd be completely naive if we told our kids that everything's fine. It always works that way. There's always some type of loss. There's always some type of disappointment. And it's how we learn to control that disappointment, which, in my opinion, probably makes the more successful people, the ones that are able to get past it and understand it. It doesn't mean the people that can't, there's something wrong with them. It just means that they might not be as strong on the productive side of moving past something where it continues to bother them. And when it continues to bother them, it gets to their focus. And focus is everything. Focus has to be the most general but most specific conversation in the world, if you really think about it. Because everything we do revolves around focus. It's funny, I have several of the Bimini ring games in my office, and in my den. And the Bimini ring is that ring, the game with the ring, and you whip it around and you try to catch the hook. So the kids in Dean a lot of times will ask, they'll see me, doing that, like even at a random point in time. And sometimes they'll see me doing it several times and they think I'm screwing off, which maybe I am sometimes, but a lot of times I am doing it because I really try to see how many times I can hit that hook where I'm just completely concentrating. Nothing blocks out what I'm doing, and I try to hit it. And you'd be amazed that if you don't think of it, if you just like randomly do it, like you might be off for a little bit or you might completely miss it. But if you're really staring at it and you really focus on what you're doing, you'll hit that thing more times than not. Now, this sounds like a stupid conversation. Some of you are watching, are like, I don't know where he's going with that.
Neither does he.
What's that?
Neither does he.
When you start going through things, when you get through rejection can really cause a lot of poor focus on what it is you're doing, especially if you let it get to you long term. Okay? And this is in no means to tell you to shrug your shoulders at rejection, but it's certainly suggesting that you try to cope with it the best you can and eventually move on. Because dwelling on rejection really isn't going to fix the rejection itself because it's still there. Okay? So this is a general conversation about how it's very hard to deal with rejection. Now we're going to start getting into some of the real estate examples that really should be the true takeaways from the show today. This section right here is probably one of the most important ones for new agents, okay? Because they struggle the most. And I will tell you some of the motivation for today's show came from actually our own office in our new agent masterminds, where they identified this as one of the issues that they wanted to be discussed. And we had that conversation yesterday. I'm like, you know what? We might as well just have a show on it because they're asking about it. We haven't talked about it in a while. So I thought that was a good motivation for today's show. In real estate, there are several examples of rejection. Whether it's in not being accepted as a listing agent, you interview for a listing and you don't get it. That's a common one. Whether a friend goes with somebody else. We're going to talk about that one in a second. Whether a family member goes with somebody else, which can be extremely hurtful, maybe even completely damaging. Maybe not negotiating a contract where we lose it in multiple offers. That's a form of rejection. Might not be your rejection, but the client damn well got rejected, and we're part of it, and we have to explain it. So this isn't just a matter of someone making you feel bad. Rejection is blocking something that we were trying to succeed at, and it didn't happen for whatever reason, and now we're reacting to it, and we have to figure out the best way. All right, so I'm going to give you an example. This is a personal one from yours truly. A lot of the teachings that I do are right out of pages out of my book. Some stupid things that I did too. I have no shame. I don't mind telling people if I've done something stupid. I don't mind telling people when I've done something right too. I mean, I'm not hypocritical that way, so I don't mind sharing weaknesses and patheticness in my life. And this is one of them. It happened very early on in my career. I was thankful that it happened early on in my career, where I was just starting. When you just start, you want any type of business, because it's so hard to get started. It takes so long, right? That's a good takeaway from today for new agents too. It does take a long time. This isn't instant glorification. This isn't instant success, at least for most of us, right? So anytime you even have a hint at somebody that could have been a client and it doesn't work out, it can be almost devastating to some point. I think I was at the end of my first year, at the beginning of my second year. I think I'd sold 3 or 4 houses. Obviously, I'm hungry for selling houses, and I had started doing the networking thing like I was trained to do. So I started making a very good effort with a lot of people that I did business with or did business, with other people in common, that I would start doing everything I can to get clients for them, because the general term of networking is if you do that for them, a lot of times they turn around and do it for you. There's one person, a longtime friend, high school friend, go way back, that I had personally gone out of my way for. And I would say given them probably 7 or 8 clients in the past, 2 or 3 months at that time, which I thought was a significant effort. That person probably made from those alone, my guess, anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000. Okay, so look, and it was meaningful, right? And we were longtime friends. So this isn't just me going to meet some stranger. This is not only me doing something for somebody, but actually a longtime friend, right? Knowing that I'm trying to get myself established. Well, of course, the part you should already know. I find out that they end up selling the beautiful house that they were in. I want to say it was like a $700,000 or $800,000 house. That's the first, and then the next is they went and bought a 1.2. Of course, they used somebody else. I find this out like a month later. So this is early in my career. Immature, uneducated. Do the obvious. Pick up the phone and I want answers because I don't understand right now. So I call this individual and I do exactly what you would think the average person would do. I went off on him. I got upset. Well, I didn't just immediately go off on him. I waited for the response. And then when I got the response I didn't want to hear, I went off on him. I said terrible things. I got extremely angry, which I can be a pretty angry guy, but I usually control it pretty good in public. I got extremely angry, more than I ever do, which is a terrible lack of control, and took a 15-year friendship and burned it up in smoke in less than 5 minutes. It took me 5 minutes to ruin 15 years, right? Now, at the time, that's not my fault. It's theirs. They're the one who ruined it. It wasn't me. I made damn sure they knew that too. So time goes by, right? Time heals everything. Well, it didn't heal that one. I was still pissed about it years later. We're at a networking event. I want to say it was 6 or 7 years later. Run into the individual, uncomfortable. Just, it's always uncomfortable when you've had bad experience with someone you run into them. I thought it was very big of this particular individual to come up to me. We both saw each other. Of course, I did the immature. I'm not going. I don't want to talk to them, They went out of their way to talk to me. So they came over. I have to admit, I was kind of rude. I'm usually a really nice and fun guy to talk to. I was pretty rude. I was like, hey, how are you? What you would expect, jerk. So they tell me, they go, look, there's no reason for us to have pleasantries or anything, but I want you to know something. And I know it's been bad for us the last few years, obviously because we haven't said a word to each other since, and we probably talked once a week for 15 years prior to that. I go, I know that was bothersome to you that we went with somebody else, but I want you to know that we had some really rough, embarrassing financial hits on our credit. Not that it's any of your business, but we had filed for divorce and pulled back from it, which was on some of the records that are looked at from those lenders. We didn't want you to know about that. We have way too many friends in common. It was embarrassing enough for us. And that is the real reason why we didn't use you. Y'all, anybody who knows me will tell you I'm not typically the guy that feels this small. I'm usually the one that makes somebody feel that small. But I'm telling you, never in my life had I ever tried to take a shoe out of my mouth. I mean, I would have had to go all the way down and pull that thing out, and it would have been the biggest boot ever because I froze because it hit me that I was way out of line. Way out of line, selfish, looked at one side of this and nothing else. And here I am now having to sit there and stare at that person, knowing that they're right. And thinking about all the terrible things I said to them and everybody else I had talked to since then about that person. Whereas their reasoning was pretty damn solid. And it's probably one of the worst things I've done in my real estate career. Still the thing I feel the lowest about. I like to pride myself when I don't make many mistakes. That is probably one of the worst ones I ever did. And even though now we are friends, I don't think that friendship ever will return to where it was because of my stupidity. Now, I'm dragging this on, and I'm about to talk to Brent about technical questions about this, but I wanted the full example to be given because inside of that example is the heart of what we're talking about today. It's how you react to it, because there are consequences and rewards depending on how you respond to that type of situation. Here's the best part, or the worst part. You are going to see this not once, not twice, but numerous amounts of times in your career. This industry, you have to have a very thick skin, very thick. It is not for the emotionally strained person. You have to be very strong-willed. And the good news is, even if you are emotionally strained, you can eventually get to where you're like very, very capable of handling those things. All right, so Brent, when we deal with this, you've had plenty of rejection. You've had rejections with your relationships, no doubt. You've had rejections in your life, right?
My body rejects me.
Your body rejects you, right? You're a former professional athlete, still probably capable if you wanted to. No doubt had rejections in that field, right?
Yep.
All of us have some type of rejections as kids. You know, there are several things I can point back to and say that's not okay. And I know for a fact the rejections you've had as a professional real estate agent, which are many, and it says a lot about your character that you're still here today and being very successful.
You have them on your whiteboard, don't you?
What's that?
You have them on your whiteboard, right? All of my rejections.
Believe me, there ain't no whiteboard that will take that. You'd have to have a freaking like a wall of China over there for that type of stuff. But in all seriousness, we see this, okay? Now, when that happens, what would have been a better response? Now that you and I know that happens, what would be the better response when that person rejects me? What should I do? What should I have done? I told you what not to do.
Yeah.
What should I have done?
During the confrontation, after she gave you the answer you didn't want, probably would have been, well, I just wish you had told me before, you know.
All right, that's a good one. There's multiple answers to this. That's one.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, or the other is, hey, I'm really happy for you. Just let me know if I can help you in the future.
That's the one I like.
Yeah.
All right, that's the good one. Now, that's the one that's going to be a takeaway from this example. And it's probably the best takeaway from the show, because you are going to see this example. You're going to see this exact example, and that's the way you handle it. The way you handle it is you're like, hey, that is no problem at all. I totally understand. Let me know if you need any type of help, even here or in the future. I totally understand. Now, there's a couple things that go with that when you say that to that person. One, it is very reassuring to them because they most likely did have a problem. They were concerned about having to tell you, and your answer just made their life a whole lot easier. Yep. And they can be very thankful for that, right? That's one result from this.
Well, and the funny thing too, and you're probably about to get on it, but those people will probably give you referrals in the future because they feel bad about it.
Yeah. And that's why I like to open with the example, but I like you to be the one dissected, because you're right. If you don't say it, that is what I'm going to say. What comes from it, if you do it right, the rejection that you originally got might be one of the best things that ever happened to you. Now, I can speak personally from this. This has happened many times to me, where I did get that rejection and I did handle. Believe me, I became a professional at handling rejection after that first time, because I'm like, that'll never. Well, especially after I saw the result of it, I made sure that never happened again. And I've learned over the years when I do that. In fact, I think it was last year, I had someone that did not use me for a listing. I was like, that's annoying. But I must have got 4 deals that same year from that person that person went off and told other people, hey, I've got a really good guy that does this. Now, you can sit there and be puzzled by that, but I can tell you, without even talking to that person, that means they had something personal that they didn't want me to know, or they had some type of deal they had to fulfill with somebody else. But that didn't stop them from saying what a good real estate agent I was and referring me out. Now, you know what would have stopped that from happening? Me flying off the handle, letting them have it for not using me. All right, so this is the consequences and the results and the consequences and rewards. They can be quite vast depending on which route you take. Now, I like this show in general for different reasons than I like some of the other ones. This one doesn't have like 8 to 10 takeaways. This one literally has 2 or 3, but the 2 or 3 are so important that they affect hundreds of other things that we do. So for those that are watching, like, God, this one's a long, drawn-out episode, you're not paying enough attention, because the route we're trying to take you on is understanding how that happens, because we know it's going to happen, and how you respond to it.
Well, one of the ways that kind of ties in with that, and you'll get it, I know I've had it probably a dozen times, and other people will have it more, is when you have that rejection, you find out from usually social media, one of your friends is selling their house.
Yeah.
Or the worst is when they call you and they say, hey, we're going to sell our house. And you go, awesome. They're like, so let us know if you have any buyers, bring them by, here's my agent's contact info.
I'll never understand that. I
No.
won't. Because, I still get those calls. I had a friend do that not too long ago. And I'm sitting there going, are they pranking me? Is there a camera just to watch how I respond? Are they really being serious? And they
you
were
gotta
being
handle
serious.
You got to be classy.
I was like, yes. I sometimes struggle when it comes on, because I do have to sit there and think about it for a minute. And I'm like, oh, they're being serious. I do need to go, oh, that's great. Yeah, let me look at those buyers we can get that can screw me.
Be like, oh, I didn't know it was out there. I mean, the MLS wouldn't tell me. Thank God you told me.
That would be pretty good too.
Yeah.
All right, here's another good takeaway. And again, I think personal experiences, no book teaches you about personal experiences. That's why the show's live. That's why we go through these things, so we can be genuine. And you can see that it happens to normal people that have been in this business for a long time. And if it happens to normal people in this business, a good chance it can happen to you. This one's probably better than the first one, because this one happens mainstream, across the boards with everyone. This one literally happens to everyone out there. We get started and we try so hard to pick up business. Very humbling when you become a real estate agent. This is probably the best part for the new agents right now, because y'all all struggle with this. You have doubts. Those of you who've been doing it for 5 or 6 months and you hadn't sold anything, keep paying the broker, you keep paying the board fees. You doubt yourself. And you start saying this is a mistake, or worse, you have a significant other that's actually not being supportive. They're actually saying, I knew you wouldn't do this. You're wasting time and money, that's really embarrassing if someone's doing that, because you would have to take 3 or 4 years to really start making that a legitimate conversation. But there they are, 6 months. They're trying their best. They try so hard. And it's just one rejection after another. I think one of the hardest things in my career, actually probably even in my life, and me and Dean are too emotional. We're pretty acceptant of the negative things that can happen in life, which is what I do think is one of our better connections. When I first started, I think I was on my 7th listing appointment. And, back then you dressed nice, you put your nicer clothes on. Here I am today, I wear t-shirts and stuff, and tennis shoes. But, you dress up, you're trying out your best you can, you rehearse before you go out there.
Yep.
It's so hard to watch a new agent versus when you've done it for 20 years. Because for you, it's so like
second nature.
Secondhand, right? Yeah. Secondhand, second nature. And it's so simplistic. But the first few times, it's so far from it. It's so hard. I mean, you're sick, you're You're nervous. You don't know what to say.
You get shake voice.
Yeah, right. Right. And it's just not a good feeling. And that's why I think this is a good show for the new agents, because we know what you feel. Right? I'm reaching out to you right now, telling you it's okay. So my first 7 or so, every one of them, just complete rejection. Either rejection straight in my face, like, well, thanks for coming in, which that's the worst. Or the 2 day later, hey, I want to let you know, appreciate you coming in. We went with someone else. Actually, that one's worse. I don't like that one. I don't like the patronizing. So I remember one time I came back and for the first time, it actually asked, she goes, well, how'd it go? And I go, no, I didn't get it. And, she teared up a little bit. And it's, it's hard. Rejection's hard on your own, right? It's hard enough for you to get rejection. It's worse when the ones around you that love you are starting to feel your rejection. And there ain't nothing fun about that, right? That's probably the hardest thing in my career I've ever had to deal with, because it was the first time where I was like, I suck at this. I am failing big time. By the way, first time in my career that I had that type of failure, which everybody does have failures. That was the first time I really had acknowledged failure, and it didn't feel very good. Okay, now you can collapse, like many agents do. You can quit, like many agents do, or you can sit there and hope that it gets better and nothing ever gets better. Many agents do that too. Or you can start evaluating what you're doing. You can start figuring out that you're obviously not doing something right, because you should not be getting rejected every single time, unless you're being just like some belligerent fool. If you find that you're fairly well educated, fairly a decent, smart person, like anybody else out there, then why aren't you able to do that? Which that should be the common solution, which means you should go reevaluate what your spiel is and how you're doing it, and get back in there until you can freaking get somebody that will finally accept that you're capable of doing this. And here's the good news for you. Everybody is capable of that. The worst real estate agents out there are capable of it. You just have to make the effort to get past it. And if you thought that earlier, I'm just babbling through, dragging this out, talking about rejection, this is the point I'm coming to. You can sit there and dwell on it. You can sit there and make excuses for it. And you can sit there and say, I'm never going to be good at this and I'm going to quit. Or you can buckle down, figure out a new way, start selling a ton of houses, go from selling 5 to like 50 in a matter of a couple of years, go to where you sell a couple thousand, go to where you say, I need someone to help me, go to where you say, I need to start bringing people on so they can do the same things that I did, and grow it to where it's a big enough thing that hundreds of people rely on you to make money and make a living. And that's me. That's what I went through, and that's what I did. And I'm the one that was constantly rejected. Not relationship or talking here in real estate. It happens and it doesn't go away. It's an ugly feeling. 21 years now in this, I still see it. The only difference now is I don't give a damn when it happens. I understand whether it was a good or a bad reason. I understand what happened. But the thing that keeps me moving on is like, there'll always be somebody else. And you know what? For every rejection you have, there's always typically a win that backs it up. You might have got rejected on one, but you might have picked up one that you didn't expect. And I don't know if there's a karma god out there when it comes to real estate, but almost every time in my career that I had something bad or a bad rejection happen, something unexpected that was very good happened. Like maybe I get rejected on a 500K listing, but then I have a friend that says they put my name on a new construction 800K home, and I rarely even had to do anything, and I make close to $18,000-$19,000, or no, close to $25,000 to $30,000, right? So You have to be able to get past these things, not just in real estate, but in life as well. And this is tough because my wife doesn't agree with me on this all the time. Because I'm more, hey, look, you can get past anything. A lot of people can't get past everything. A lot of people, it's a lot harder for it. And a lot of people, it's not even controllable. It's their DNA, their mental health issues that they have that get them past that. And there's a lot of us that have those types of problems. And that's granted, we understand that. But even there, at some point, you got to sit there and go, this isn't going to get any better by dwelling on it. It doesn't change. It doesn't recreate anything. You know, that old saying is, if you keep doing the same thing, how can you ever expect any type of change? Or if you want change, how can you change when you do the same thing? That's a pretty good statement, because that's exactly what happens when you have that type of rejection. If you keep doing the same things, you're probably going to expect the same type of rejection from most people. It only until you change will things be different for you. And that's easy to say for a lot of us. A lot of us are stronger at handling rejection. A lot of us laugh it off, which is me. That's what I do. And I will say, to some extent, it's effective because it doesn't let me sit and dwell on it. But for those that struggle with it, there are a lot of things out there, a lot of instructions, seminars, medicines that help you to cope with those types of things and get past them. And you've got to be on those types of things or intend those types of things if you want to get better. One of the worst things you can do is pretend that you don't have an issue. Pretend that it's not a problem and that it's just typical depression or rejection. Like, that's not true. There might be something just triggering how you're reacting to that, but it affects so much in what we do. You know, we drag this on about focus. We drag this on about dwelling on things. These are negative impacts in our life when it comes to our life itself, business itself, and real estate itself. And the sooner you start learning to push it off, cope with it, and move on, the sooner you start seeking help from those who are stronger that have gone through those things, the much better off you're going to be. In real estate in particular, I can assure you, your first couple of years are filled with rejection. That is not a reason to quit. Those of you who are quitting because of rejection, that's more disappointing than the rejection itself, because you haven't given it a chance. And I say this all the time. Anybody in the real estate career inside of 2 years, you have no right to quit. Some people can say, who the hell are you to say that? I go, I just told you. I go, you don't have a right to quit. You haven't even started yet. You cannot say you're a good real estate agent inside of 2 years. You just can't. You can't make that judgment. Hell, I'd even argue 3 to 5 years.
You tell me every day inside 10 years.
Well, I mean, maybe if you hadn't taken that long, it wouldn't have been. But look, I'm telling you, we're going to end the show on a very high note. Those of you out there, those of you in that 2-year time range, especially as you get towards the end of the year and your board dues are ready to start again, and you start second guessing yourself, don't. It is quite normal what you're going through. If you go back and rehash the past year and you look at all the people who rejected you, join the club. I don't think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing if you get rejected. All right? And I can tell you this, I'd much rather get rejected in real estate than to get nothing at all. Because at least rejection is you're doing something, you're trying.
Yep.
Because the stats say if you keep doing it long enough, you'll do well.
Well, and I think a lot of real estate agents, they'll hold back. They don't want to try because they don't want to get rejected. And that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, you can't fear rejection. Yeah. If you're one of those that maybe you were picked last at school or like one of the second to last, and that's just devastating to you, that's no reason to quit. That's the reason to get better and try harder and figure out why is it.
Or you can just refer your business to me and I'll take it.
Or but you still win because you're making money from referring like that, right? There's a reason to get past everything out there. It's what you choose to do. The lesson here today, rejection is no excuse for quitting. Not here. Maybe in other industries, but not in this one. It's expected. And those of you right now who are just doing that, maybe I should do this or that, you're doing it all wrong. Maybe you should go back and look at the training that your brokers are giving you. go back to the marketing side and say, have I done this like I should?
Or not giving you.
Well, like even, or not giving you. That's just a cardinal sin of any supervisor. But if you're not doing those types of things, you got it all wrong. Okay, so rejection really does have a very hard grip on the success that we could potentially have, or in hampering us from having that same success. So work at it. It's a long time. It's not an easy fix. This is more of a notification to you telling you that it is okay. It's all right. Just kind of push on with it and understand that this is normal business practices for all of us in the real estate career. I want to thank everybody for watching. Like I said, appreciate all the archive watches. Very good show. Any team lead or manager that watched today that has agents that struggle with this, or they've talked about quitting, or anybody themselves that are thinking about quitting, this is a very good show for you to send them to. Tell them to watch it. Tell them to genuinely watch it. Those of you who struggle and you need help, there are many groups out there. Of course, we are one of them. JoinSWR.com talks about these types of things. These are the types of things we help you with. These are the types of things that we help you with to get you past that, because we've been there before and we don't want you to have to do it on your own. So joinswr.com. That's a great place to go if you need help with those things. Not as
God, Mark.
He's quick though. He pulls it down when he knows it's not right. There you got it now. JoinSWR.com. And now he's got it flashing in there. Y'all, again, thanks a lot. Y'all have a great week. We'll see y'all next week.